But Artie and I were close, and I wish that I could keep in touch with Artie. It just seems like he's kind of, but maybe he needs to be bubbled up. And
I think he's taking care of himself, what he needs to take care of, number one.
But, there became a time when the eyes start rolling into the back of his head sort of stuff. And the eyes, the lids are like half open. And, I had a camera on him. I felt like I had to do my job and capture it, but I felt guilty for it.
He was just coming out of whatever he was coming off of, and he looked at me and I'll never forget that look. It was so chilling. It was like, if he could get out of that bed, he would strangle me.
The kind of friendship I have with Artie is, it's not like I talk to him every day. Wish I did, but I don't want to bother him like that.
Artie Lange comes in and changes the dynamic of the show, but maybe for the better. I always say there's two great eras. For me, it's Jackie, then the Artie era. Artie, Howard leaves his microphone on. He didn't really it didn't seem like any issues with you during the show at K-Rock. It seemed like he was pretty much clean and feeling good, even though maybe he wasn't clean, but he was doing his job coming in. But all the
unfortunately, I don't think. I think in retrospect he wasn't, obviously. But in terms of dealing with him, he was I tried to communicate with Artie. I liked Artie a lot, and tried to communicate with Artie, in some of his troubled times, and failed, but Artie was a great guy. Or is a great guy, The only thing I don't like about Artie is a big Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. But other than that, I can't think of anything we really disagreed on. He was funny. He was quick. He was a big fan. When he first came on, it was at one level. Then after he proved himself a success there, his agent and I had a fairly easy negotiation over, on moving him up. But I always remember being in Vegas one year, for those shows, and Artie was so smashed while we're doing these shows that I was actually sitting, hiding on the side of the stage, with my fingers through the back of his belt loop, so that he was sitting next to Fred, who had the control board. Howard obviously always and still runs his own board, I think. And that every time Artie tried to get up, I would pull on his belt loop to not let him get up, so he couldn't tip over and probably fall into into Fred's stuff. But yeah, Artie was great on the show. He added a different dynamic. Obviously, he wasn't writing like Jackie was writing, but he was adding because he was a very spontaneous, funny guy who had a lot of great stories that just added to the show.
Yeah, and you weren't there, and it was a different time. But how do you think you would have handled how his ending happened?
I don't know. I can't second guess anybody on that. It was, we are who we are. We do what we do to ourselves, and at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for that, and to ourselves. So I'm sure the guys at the management team at Sirius, I'm sure they did everything they could to keep that situation viable.
And no contact with him lately? I know he's kind of coming back out of...
No. I'd be happy to, but I tried, and maybe he doesn't even know that I tried. I don't know. And maybe this message gets to him, and, we could argue about who's better, the Mets or the Yankees, now that we've got a viable owner of the Mets in New York. We're excited.
Yeah. These times where Artie, I love Artie, I miss Artie, I ask everybody about Artie, but Scott, tell me about these times when you're watching him fall asleep, or you're watching him fight Teddy or Sal. And did you have sense that there was issues with him, or did you feel weird about showing this, or was it, hey, it's a big party, Artie's laughing at it, it's fun?
I literally had no idea he was doing drugs until after he would say it each time. Then I'd be like, oh, but then the next time I would give him the benefit of the doubt. And again, he must just be tired because he was up all night long. I don't know. But, there became a time when the eyes start rolling into the back of his head sort of stuff. And the eyes, the lids are like half open. And, I had a camera on him. I felt like I had to do my job and capture it, but I felt guilty for it. And the extent that it was funny and he played along, like putting the bed out there so he could take a nap. During the interview, who was being interviewed when he's sleeping there? She's talking about her, like,
was it Avril Lavigne, or
she's talking about an award she won or something, and here's Artie just snoring on the bed. It was so funny. But so the extent we can make fun of it, it was great, but ultimately it was sad. And Artie was a good friend and generally the funniest person that worked in that whole 20 years of the show. And I just hope he figures it out, you know.
You don't keep in touch with him, right?
He changes his phone number all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll call him once a year maybe when I find a new phone number, and we'll talk for a little while, and then he disappears again. So
and just give me some of those times back in the late 2008s, 2009s, things are breaking down, and what was it like for you just to watch that happen? And how's he doing? If you know?
I mean, well, but first of all, I don't know how he's doing. I'm about 9 cell phone numbers behind on him, so I haven't talked to him in quite some time. I shoot him a DM here and there, but I haven't heard back. I hope he's good. I hope he's with his mom and his sister. The fact that he's not on social media, I think, is a very good sign. The fact that he's not anywhere really, I think, is a good sign. I think he's taking care of himself, what he needs to take care of, number one. As far as the Artie years, the end, I hated it. I hated every second of it because there was nobody more genuine. And I mean, he looked out for me when I got out there. I got out there in 05, 06, November of 06, he invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving, right? He didn't need to do that. He invited me to his mom's for Thanksgiving. On the drive out there, he was just schooling me on radio and being a comic and how, like, hey, you're doing this Killers of Comedy tour and, you know, you're not going to make as much as you should because you're going to be doing a lot of the material with Levy. But there's guys who are going to be making more than you because they're on the air. And so you got to be okay with that. And you got to understand that. You got to make a decision how you're going to get on the air and how you're going to be perceived.
Now, I think we talked about it last time, but I'm just curious, like, how much you had to deal with him. Like, was it more Howard coming to you and saying, deal with him? Because there was a lot of issues there in the last 3 or 4 years he was there. How often did you have to kind of personally go to him and say, listen, man, let's get this together. What can we do to help? How many times did that come up for you?
Every day. I mean, Howard and I would meet with him on occasion, but I had to deal with it. And because we were a family and so close, that we felt the bumps in the road. And you know, I didn't understand what he was going through until, you know, we got really into it. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was really heartbreaking to see one of your fellow comrades and, you know, friend and a guy with such a big heart and soul as Artie had to watch somebody to go through that. It's just terrifying. And I didn't understand it. I'm not a therapist, whatever, but I was a friend of his, and to see him to go through what he went through. And then when he stabbed himself after I cut him loose from the team and it was horrifying. I still have shivers up and down my spine, even thinking about it. But, that's how heavy and how close it was and what it meant. And, you know, that podcast that I was on with Artie that time, it was just so good to see him. It was the healthiest I've seen him in a long time. And it made me feel good that, you know, hopefully he turned the corner, you know, but, you know, all you can do is pray. So, and hope for the best with guys like that.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on, but I have a question about just what was that day like where you did have to tell him? Like, how did that happen? Can you kind of take me through? I know he was on the show, and the next day, it was a Thursday, he wasn't, so it was clearly that day, right? Tell me, just give me how that happened, like, just the details, because it's interesting, I think, to everyone to hear, you know, someone you've heard every day and made you laugh, and you're hoping is good, now he's not there.
I talked to him after the show, and I walked him out of the building, and I just, you know, gave him a hug and asked him to get help. And he did go to rehab for, I think, 24 hours. And then he got out of rehab and he went home and stabbed himself 7 times. And I remember sitting at next in the hospital bed with his mom and his sister and Robin, and Artie was just coming out of whatever he was coming off of, and he looked at me like, and I'll never forget that look. It was so chilling. It was like, if he could get out of that bed, he would strangle me. That's how I just, you know, and he couldn't talk. He felt pathetic. I could see, you know, just the pain in him. And it was a very heavy moment. And I just, you know, I'd rather not think about it.
No. Okay, I'm not going to continue. Have you talked to him, though? Have you heard from him since the last time we talked? Is it?
No, I reach out to his manager every once in a while to see how he's doing, but he's kind of laying low.
You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. If you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand-up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here, probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But when did you get a hold of Artie? Because last time we hadn't talked to him. So how did you get a hold of him, and how was he looking? And give us an update.
He was out of he got out of the hospital, and I think Ian went to his apartment. I'm not sure, and it wasn't long after that he had some more trouble, and then as far as I know right now, he's doing fine. I know for a few seconds he did a podcast with somebody. And then I think he was talking about maybe taking a gig. But then the whole pandemic completely obscured everything, because even if somebody wanted to work or was ready to work, they couldn't work. So everything is obscured. So who knows? I just knock on wood. I hope the guy's doing good, because I love him. He was good to me. He did the foreword to my book. Now he's been in my documentary, and whatever. I wish the best for him. And, he teeters. Addiction's a rough thing. I got 20 in a month. I'm going to be 20 years sober, and I could reach for a beer tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's it's a very tentative thing. So,
just give me a thought on Artie, and if I don't know if you talked to him, I guess not.
No, I don't even know where Artie is right now, and I know a lot of people don't know. He's sort of just disappeared. I hope he's okay. I haven't talked to him in probably a year and a half now. So that's a real worry and concern. I just hope he's all right. But great guy, obviously fighting demons, and just a lot of trouble in his life. But I just hope whatever he's going through right now, wherever he is, I just hope he comes out on the other side really good.
Yeah, and hopefully his nose is okay. I saw the last clip of him, and he was so good. He was really nice to me when he came through town, so I root for him too. I was a huge fan of this era when Artie came in 01, and then you guys go to Satellite, and it was just hilarious. But everyone has to obviously understand that Artie, there's something going on with Artie, but Howard doesn't want to talk about it. Tell me how hard it was to sort of not be able, I know even Lisa G was saying, I have a file, and I'd be interested to hear about that file, I guess. But tell me what you thought about those days where, Artie's falling asleep, he's not showing up, and everybody's asking these questions. Can the news team find out? How is it to deal with all that?
Well, up until the end, we reported everything that we knew. And Artie was not happy always with that. And maybe, who knows, Howard may not have been happy with that. But we reported him extensively. Then Howard took, and he was concerned about, Artie is for us, Artie was a news story, and we covered it aggressively.
Well, and what was it like just seeing him sort of, I have to say, deteriorate,
Well, it was Artie, even in good days, really liked to control he didn't like being covered by somebody like me, because I would report what happened. You know, I reported what I saw, and he didn't care for that. And it was not always flattering, obviously. I mean, I remember one time toward the end there where he was doing an appearance in Philadelphia, a book signing, I think. And I went over to Hoboken, I think, and there was a party bus. So we were supposed to leave, and the book signing in Philadelphia was, say, 7 o'clock or something like that. And 6 or 6:30 or something. And Artie's clowning around, and we're not actually going to the book signing. We got hundreds of people waiting for him in a bookstore in Philadelphia. And I'm just like, what is this? You know, is this the way you treat your fans? And I reported that.
I mean, everybody now is wondering, where is he? I'm sure you probably don't have a chance to talk to him or have his number, but you are a hard-scrabble journalist. You got to find out where he is, Steve. What do you know about him? Do you know anything about him? What was the last contact you had with him? And where is he? What can we do? I mean, he showed up doing a podcast, nose all messed up, and now we don't know where he is.
I have no idea. I mean, I covered the Stern Show when I was there, and now I don't cover that beat anymore. So I don't know. And Artie and I were obviously not friends.
It's a national news story, though, Steve. No, I'm just kidding. There was a lot of bits on the air, him falling asleep, and they're funny. Unfortunately, now that we know back revisionist, it's not funny, but there are so many. So how do you guys tap dance around? This seems weird, but it's funny. It's good for as Howard always said, it's good for the air. So right, I mean, it had to be that.
As we got to, I remember the day when we found that there was heroin. I was like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" And it was just it was heavy. It was emotional. It was just, everybody dealt with it their own way. But Howard and I kind of sat down and just, what do we do? We're kind of at a loss. I can't fix it. We can make decisions that affect the business, but I can't fix Artie. I can't take away the pain. I can't take away what he's going through. So it is what it is.
So we saw that you did this podcast back in January, and then he kind of just went off the face of the earth in April. Was that the first time you'd kind of gotten to really – because it sounded like he really wanted to apologize to you. And then I know people are just like, where is he? What's going on? Have you had a chance to talk to him or know what he's doing?
That was probably the third time that I saw him. I saw him, he was getting back on his feet. He really – I tell you, he really looked the best that I've ever seen him. He lost weight.
Yeah, no, those were fun years. I don't know if you talked to Artie. I was just curious if you've heard from him or how's he doing?
We don't. Nobody knows. He's MIA, and who knows? He'll pop up and they'll start doing 19 different podcasts.
He just said he had demons that I didn't even know about. I just thought he drank. I thought we were both drinking. You know what I mean? I did do coke back then. He used to yell at me saying, "Hey, you can't do that. That's bad. That's terrible." Like somebody would shake my hand and give it to me. And he's like, "Throw that out," And for me to find out he was doing heroin, I was shocked, truthfully, because I just thought he was drinking. And then, it was it's hard to if you can hide it that much from somebody you're with a lot, it's really weird.
You guys became really pretty tight, right? And I think when you picked him up from rehab or drove him to rehab or both.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got him into that rehab because I was just like, look, we're doing this, and this is it. I'll go with you, because I was trying to get off Xanax and that because my doctor fucked me up on him. And, I got him to agree, come down and meet the people. They wanted to take him that night, but he goes, I can't go tonight. So they worked it out. They got him, took him there. He called me, and he's like, I'm getting out. I went and picked him up. Totally back to the way he was way before this. You understand? It was like I heard it in his voice. I seen the way he was, and it was an amazing feeling to see that. And then he, there's too many people out there that would do anything to hang out with him, and they would get him high. You understand? They would do it, and that's a bad thing. And that's the hardest thing. And that's why I think him disappearing right now is the best thing. Not hearing about him, not talking to him is the best thing that can happen to him right now. It's got to be good.
I know you did this podcast a few years back, but I mean, do you talk to him? Have you heard from him?
God, it was a while ago. Now I have it. You know, I was with him the night that Crashing premiered on HBO. What is that? 4 years ago, whenever it was. 5, I don't even know. But he was straight, he told me. But that night, he called me and said he wanted to get high. And I thought he was I said, come on. He said, no, man, I really need something. Can you find anything? And I hadn't been looking for that stuff for many years. And I said, I don't know who to call. I'll call somebody. And it took hours, but I found somebody. So Artie met me at this restaurant with this guy. He got his stuff. We both went to his room. We had a little fun. I'm not going to lie. I was involved as well. And then I swear to God, everything in his life changed the next day. Like every bad thing happened to him from that night on. Now, I don't know what he was doing before we hung out. I tend to think he was doing plenty. But he presented to me, no, man, I'm straight, but I just can't go to San Francisco with the HBO executives. It's too much on my head. I mean, junkies say stuff like that. And I was never around Artie on a daily basis to know any better. But I'll tell you, everything that happened, the getting caught, going to jail, you know, it all started to happen from that night. And you think about a guy that's got a best-selling book on the shelves. He's got this show Crashing on HBO. He's got a podcast that was making a ton of money. And he's on stages everywhere in the country. He's making millions. And then it all goes. And I don't know where he is now. No idea. He ain't getting high. He's not in jail, or else we'd all know. So he must have made an obvious, thank God, a really big change in his life to rectify things. But no one's saying where he is.
Yeah. No, that's what's crazy. No one's talking. He just did something with Nick DiPaolo, I guess, and it was very weird. It was quick.
I heard that.
It was quick.
I heard that, but they wouldn't say where you are. It was weird. Yeah.
And everybody I have on this podcast, I have to ask, like, do you have a chance? Have you talked to him? And just give us one of your favorite Artie stories. If you have any update, it'd be great if you could say, I actually talked to him yesterday.
No, I haven't. Artie's been hard to get a hold of. And when Artie was going through the lowest of his lows, I reached out several times. None of his numbers work. I tried to get a hold of the guy that represents him, and I can't. I've been trying to. I'd love to have him on the air. I'd love to just not have him on the air, but talk to him as a friend and tell him I'm thinking about him and I'm proud of him. I like Artie as well. Artie, Artie we came down here and did a couple gigs, and we got to hang out. And my favorite Artie story is we had the porn star Asta Akira, and I found her in New York when we first started going there, and she became my show whore. And we were trying to set her up with Artie, and we had her all ready to fuck Artie and have a big hot porno deal. And Artie, kind of got freaked out by it. We were on a boat. We were on my buddy's big chartered boat. And Artie kept saying, man, I don't know if Bubba the Love Sponge and the Febrezzi's here trying to get me some porn star pussy, and I don't even know if I'm getting set up or what the fuck. And we could never get it worked out. But Artie and I were close, and I wish that I could keep in touch with Artie. It just seems like he's kind of, but maybe he needs to be bubbled up and not deal with some of his older friends that could potentially trigger him into doing some bad shit. I've never done cocaine, or I've never been into that scene, so to speak. But I have been part of some shady scenes, as you know, and maybe that's maybe Artie doesn't want anything to do with me. I don't know.
I mean, I wrote the foreword to his second book, Artie's second book, and he details a lot of that in there. Or I don't know, maybe it was in the first book. Either way, reading it and his little conversation he had with Rudd during a break that happened, some of the stuff Rudd said, Rudd was kind of egging him on to kind of do more. And we now know that he was snorting Vicodin and drinking Jack before he went out there. Not exactly information that I had handy at the time. When I went in, I did go into his dressing room beforehand. I was excited to meet him because I was a huge fan of the show. I was the one that was like, we got to get Artie Lange. If we can get him. HBO got him. And I was like, Artie, rip me. When you get out there, just shred me. I don't care. And I didn't know it would go to that degree, but I was never upset by it. I was upset by the reaction, but I wasn't like out there about to cry. I mean, I kind of, and it got frustrating, and I started to lose my patience, but I was trying to fire back. But the whole time you have a voice in your head going, do you really want to get into a battle right now with Artie Lange? Because I'm going to have to say stuff that's going to just blow my whole persona here and just maybe flush my career. So I just had to kind of sit there and take it. And, you know, again, you live and learn. I probably would handle it better now. Maybe not. I don't know what else I could have done. So
I was going to say, what would you do? How would you do anything? I don't even know. I can't even. I can't even.
I'm not going to get into a battle of wits with somebody that's kind of. I mean, that's what he's known for, and it would be like me then trying to heckle him, and it just. I can only say this, and this is not revisionist history. And again, I've told this before, and I think Artie would probably at this point in his life agree with this. But after about the second rip on me or the show or whatever it was, the room went from really laughing to kind of like, this is a little bit too much. And he kind of, I don't think he had a great gauge that night of if it was too much or not. And so it was probably a little bit too much. But again, HBO kind of came out and freaked out about it. I never really cared. So I called him, I don't know, the next day, later that day, after I'd listened to Howard and Artie and everybody rehash all that. And I said, hey, I left him a message. I said, it's Joe. I just want to thank you for coming on. I'm not mad at you. I told you to rip me. It's all good. I'm thankful that you even bothered to come down to the studio and do it. So no hard feelings. He called me right back and he's like, anything I can do for you? You know, I'm a comic. It probably went too far, whatever. And we became friends. And, you know, he was a part of the second show, which I had to demand to have him in the second show, or I said, I'm not going to do the second show. And I had to get into kind of a little bit of a battle on that because I had booked him. I'd written something for him at the beginning to do like a cold opening joke. And then the head of HBO, Richard Plepler, came in and said, no, he's not coming on the second show. It's done and over with. And I was like, well, not to me. I haven't been on in 3 months and I'm not going to go out there and act like that didn't happen. This is my life. So I'm either going to be able to talk about it and laugh at myself and laugh about it, or I'm not going to do it. I already have a job. And I won that little battle. And, you know, when that piece of tape came on and he's a part of that opening and the crowd, the studio audience, you know, roared with laughter, I was like, I did the right thing, and it was funny, and it was well done. So that was another lesson that you learn.
You have a good Artie Lange story. He did come to Bubba's wedding. It became a huge, great story for both shows, I'm assuming. And he would call in, too, every once in a while. Did you get to know Artie real well?
Yeah, I did, actually. And even when I was leaving Bubba's show, he was one of the people that I talked to on the phone, and he kind of was like, Brent, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Everything's awesome. So I love Artie. Artie is one of my favorite people in the world. Like, the guy is a sweetheart, and he's got a huge heart. And I feel for him for any of the pain that he's in. And I've told him personally up at Sirius when I've seen him up there, even with any of the bullshit he was going through with some of the people from the show not liking him, I just pulled him aside and said, hey, man, if you ever need anything, just give me – and I just texted him this the other day. If you ever need anything, support, or even somebody to talk to as a friend, just give me a call, because he was there for me when I needed somebody too. So but the funny story is at Bubba's wedding, Artie had money on the Saints. The Saints were playing the Eagles in the playoffs. Artie had money on the Saints, and we're both looking at our BlackBerries at that time to get scores. So I'm like, Artie, there's a sports bar like right across the street. We can go hang right over there. And he's like, okay, let's go. So Artie and I go over there. I get me a big, huge, tall whiskey sour, and I'm sitting there with Artie, who's stressing about money. Like, it's right on the edge of the Saints covering or not. And then I turn around, and there's everybody behind me, Tim Sabian and Gary, and like Scott Farrell. Everybody has come across the street and is with Artie and I partying. So later on that night, after everything's over and Artie lost money, he goes, hey, man, I'm still glad. I'm glad because I'm a Saints fan. He's like, I'm glad your team won even though I lost money. And I was like, hey, we're getting ready to go take some coke and go hang out with strippers. You want to come with us? And he was like, Brent, if I started doing coke, we'd wind up in St. Louis by the end of the night. I was like, okay. Understood. I just wanted to be hospitable. So he turned down that, but a group of us did go out with the strippers and the coke that night.
Good for you. I know I ask every guest because I know I think you had Artie on at one point. Have you talked to Artie Lange? How is Artie? Everyone wants to know.
I heard a lot of different things. Last time I reached out to his manager, he's like, yeah, he's fine, don't worry. I heard that he's in jail. If he was in jail, isn't that a public thing? He's really a really good human being, and he's been nothing but nice to me. I mean, I never worked with him, but he was just such a big super fan listening. Like the first time I met Artie was at Scores. He was leaving. I was coming in. And I was like, oh, I just wanted to say hi, introduce myself. My name's Steve Grillo. I don't know. He goes, Grillo, are you kidding me? I'm a huge fan. He was like, you know how much I know about you? I know you went to Hunter College. I know your dad's a mailman. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. I was like, oh, shit. So he's every time I've ever seen him or I've ever been around him, he's been nothing but a good friend and kind and generous. So I hope nothing but the best for him. And I think we know if something was bad, so let's just leave it alone and think everything is good. And then it's so good that he just wants to be alone.
Artie, do you keep in touch? Do you have an update? People are wondering where he is, so let's ask.
No, and this is the one case where I'm taking no news is good news. I recently got a note from his sister Stacy to connect on LinkedIn, which I thought was a wonderful sign that, like, okay, this is great. We had a beautiful exchange. I said, gave my best to Artie. I didn't want to intrude, but the pictures. He looks amazing, except for whatever physical problem with the nose. And I don't know if that's just him as a reminder to not go down that trail again, or maybe he's done something with it already, but he was a good looking guy, you know, and then the great guy, just great, salt of the earth guy. I basically call him and Jackie the old Darren and the new Darren from Bewitched. You know, they were both great, you know, in their own way.
Yeah. No, Jackie was on here, and I was trying to say, Jackie, why did you leave? And he pretty much just said, you know, I was drinking, and I was going to get divorced, and I couldn't wake up, and I see a lot of comments of people going, he's not answering. Why won't he answer the question? So it is funny, because he did leave the Beatles, as you know.
You know what? There's a documentary that's supposed to be coming out on. I know I spoke to the director on camera about it, but I think he dives into it in more depth in the documentary. But, you know, look, I think they call this bluff, and, you know, sometimes, like, you know, when that happens, it's like, what do you do, you know? And I think all those things added up. But he looks great. I think he's healthier now than he's ever been. Jackie, that is, and Artie too, hopefully. But yeah, you know, it was a run. It was an amazing run.
The biggest thing I want to go back to, because it was, again, you and Artie having, how much fun did you guys have? Do you even remember it? And it was probably the first time we really saw Artie get out of control, and everyone just thought it was kind of alcohol.
Artie was, we did the one show where Artie had he drank his ass off, and he actually blacked out in the middle of the show and woke up, like, you know, out of his blackout. He was up, and he was, you know, like hours later talking to Henry Hill at the casino. But what happened in between was he was supposed to make an appearance at a strip club, and I remember Gary was like, I'll do the appearance tonight, and you take my appearance tomorrow night. And he's like, no, I'm going. So it was like 5 PM, and his appearance wasn't until like 7 PM. So he jumps in a limo, and there was nobody else with them except me. So I jump in the limo with him, and I'm like kind of babysitting him. And it was like crazy. He's running around the bar and the strip club, and he's like, it was like out of hand. He was out of his mind. And I actually called Ronnie, and I was like, Ronnie, you know, can you get down here, because Artie's out of hand. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I'll send him. We had another security guy. He's like, I'll send him. I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting for this other security guy to come. And sure enough, Ronnie shows up with Howard and Beth. And I was just like, oh, shit, boss is here, you know? And Artie kind of calmed down once that happened, but he was still in his blackout. Like I said, he didn't realize he was in a blackout until he woke up talking to Henry Hill back at the casino. So he had fun. We all had fun. It was a great time. I mean, Artie, I love him. Heart of gold. I mean, we went to the strip club, and the guy handed me $1,000 in funny money. He was just like, yeah, have fun. And I'm like, holy shit. Wow, Artie, you're the man. Oh, fucking, this is great.
You two, you two seem like kindred spirits. But I was curious because on the air, everyone was having these debates as we got into the later 08, 09. Is Artie sick? What's his problem? You were kind of friendly with him, right? And did you? What was the?
We knew there was something up, but I didn't know it was heroin. You know, I knew he was doing something. He was on something, but who? You know, like we didn't know. And you know, we all cared about him, and we were all like, you know, Artie, you all right? You know, you're right. He's like, yeah. And then one time on the air, he went on the air, and he said that I knew what he was doing, and I knew he was, you know, taking drugs or whatever. Which I mean, I knew he was on something, but I didn't know it was heroin, like I said. And I was just saying, hey man, are you okay? You know, just like looking out for him as a friend, not as, you know, like, you know, a babysitter or anything. I just wanted to, you know, make sure he was okay. And he was like, yeah, Brian, you know, he goes, I just told him I was tired from a show, and you know, he didn't believe me and everything. But like I said, I didn't know. We were watching, like, towards the end, it was weird because he'd be fine, you know, and then we'd take a commercial break, and then he'd be different, you know, and we're like, what the fuck just happened? You know, like, how did that all happen? And then we learned later what happened. You know, he was getting shit sent to him, and, you know, at work, and it was bad news. But Artie's a great guy, man. I love him, and I haven't heard from him in a while. I saw him about 6 months ago. I saw him at a comedy show, and he looked great. He was, you know, fresh out of rehab and everything, and he started up again. But, you know, he kind of just went away again, and you know, like, I don't stay in touch with him. Every time I have a number on him, it's changed within a month. So, you know, I mean, I wish the best for him. You know, I love him, and he knows I love him. But, you know, he's just, you know, he's got his demons, and he's trying to get through them.
From the people I've talked to getting the Artie update, it sounds like he's okay, but there's no one wants to talk about what he's doing. So hopefully he comes back out, we see him again, and his nose is fixed and his hair.
That'd be great. I love him, man. The guy, like I said, he's got a heart of gold. He was the coolest, nicest guy to everybody, you know, and he opened up everything. He opened up his house. He opened up his wallet. He opened up everything for you. It was great. Good man. Good man.
He pissed me off really bad one time, and I came up with a bit. And I was saying, I remember writing on Stern Fan Network, I'm going to get Artie back. And then Howard said, oh, Levy wrote this. I came up with a bit where I was going to bring in a fucking girl that likes dating fat guys. And that was the biggest explosion. I never thought it would get that big. And they were like, yes, we're doing it. I hit up a girl to fucking come there who liked big guys. She did like big guys. It blew up. He fucking turned on Howard. He started calling. He was
the bro fight. Yeah, you're not my bro.
No, that's when. The bro thing all started from that. And I'm sitting at home going, "What did I just fucking do?" I swear to God, I was like, "Oh my God, no! Please don't walk off. Please don't quit." You know what I mean? Because I didn't know. I never thought it would be like that. I knew it would be bad because I know Artie and I know how to get to him. And, but I never thought it would be like both of them yelling at each other. And then like Howard putting on callers and then just calling Artie a big pussy. And it got like really fucking brutal. But, you know, but that's what this show was, man. You couldn't go in there. You couldn't go in there if you were a little bit soft. If they knew you were soft about anything, that's what people went for. You know, it's not about, you know, it doesn't matter that you guys are friends. It didn't matter. It's like if they knew you had a weak spot, oh my God, they would go after it over and over. Then that's what you do.
When was the last time you talked to Artie, by the way? Has it been, I know he's been off the grid, but do you remember the last time and how it went?
Oh, we just texted, you know what I mean? We texted, you know, with the same thing. You're doing good. You're doing good. Yeah, I love you. I love you. You know, we always say we're like brothers. But, you know, I just don't know. I don't know what was going on, you know? I don't know. You know, it got to the end. We were doing shows before the last time. And that's when I realized that, man, he fucked up, you know, and I was trying anything to get him to just stop doing this because he wasn't doing comedy for the reasons that, you know, he kind of told me. And it was just fucking, it just got to the point where it was like he was addicted so much that if he didn't do it, he couldn't function.
Was this year you're talking about? Like this right earlier this year? Or?
No, it was before
Okay.
that. It was the time before the time before he got the drug court. You understand? Because he was a mess for a while, and I was like, I did everything to fucking, had him and saying shit to me like, if he wasn't on drugs, I'd probably kill him. You understand? But I tried so hard to get him to understand, and we had good times during it, but it was like, it got ugly a lot of times because that's what drugs do to you. I'm telling you, it's like, here's the biggest thing to know that you have a drug problem. When it starts affecting other people, that's when you know. It
was when Artie first started, he was so quick. And the fact that, and the more I've talked to a bunch of the guys during this kind of series, it's, he was one of the only guys that had an open mic. Howard didn't let Fred have an open mic, but he's like, Artie, mic's open.
Open mic. And that's one of the things I loved when I did the show. Howard always left my mic on as well. The way the Stern show is set up, you got Fred, you got Benji Bronk, and I was in the middle, or Artie would be in the middle. Fred and Benji write jokes constantly. And there's a little bin in front of where I sit, and you throw these jokes on big pieces of paper in the bin, and then Howard can read the jokes with a camera that's pointed down right onto his computer screen. So people don't know, but 80% of the jokes that Howard says are written by Benji or Fred. I didn't write them. I just said them because he left my mic open. Same thing goes for Artie. You cannot write as quick as Fred and Benji. It's impossible. They are so quick. So I just spoke. But yeah, Artie was an open mic guy. And I don't think there was a better time there. And the thing about Artie, the really sad thing is, I think part of the reason why he went over the edge, especially after losing the Stern job, Artie's dad died when he was young. He never got over that. And then Stern kind of abandons him, never talked to him again. So I think it's a question of Artie dealing with the two most important men in his life just leaving, and maybe by now he's had a conversation with Howard. I know Howard said things in the press that must have made him feel a little better because Howard didn't know how to treat it. He felt a little guilty. He had told me once, I felt guilty that maybe we were letting this guy get all effed up on air. It was jokes, it was fun, but in retrospect, I didn't know what I was doing, letting him do that without insisting on him getting help. So Howard's got a little guilt, and when you're a Jewish guy from Long Island, it's a lot of guilt. So maybe they've spoken since then, but I know that's got to hurt Artie, and that's definitely one of the reasons why he spiraled out of control, I think.
It was hard to watch, too, because there's a lot of bits where Fred was like, I don't know, he just seems out of it, and Howard's like, oh, he's just tired, and that went on. After a while, it got kind of annoying, but still funny, the fact that it became a story for them.
Guy was passed out. Passed out in the chair. And then, Howard's not an addict, so he doesn't know the behavior. Fred's not an addict. Robin's not. There weren't any people in studio to understand those highs and lows of anger. That's an addict behavior. The lies about I couldn't come in, I went to the doctor, I had a cough, I had a urinary tract infection. Those are all lies that junkies tell because they want to get high. If you're late, it's because your dealer wasn't there on time. If anybody in that studio had a problem with drugs, they would have picked up on Artie early. But by the time they figured it out, it was too late.
Now, you love Artie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The guy is such an amazing person. And I know that everybody knows that he has his demons, and it's a tough road for him. But if I could tell you, honestly, the guy is one of the most caring and thoughtful, unselfish people you'll ever meet in your life. He just doesn't understand it himself, which, as much as you try and tell him, he doesn't care, which I think he's a great guy.
Yeah, and I've met him a couple times. He came through town, and I met his manager at the time was Tim. I actually even had his sister's number, Stacy, for a little bit. Yeah, and we kept in touch for a little bit.
Awesome.
And I just feel like Artie, it's sad because I guess he's just completely taken over by the demons of these drugs, and he was just such a key member of the show too. I got sad when he left, but then I kind of just didn't want to follow the rest because I just thought it was going to end badly. I can't. I hate to say it, and I'm sure he's heard this a million times from other people. I can't believe he's still alive. Like that. So hopefully I saw that he was in court 3 weeks ago, and if people want to see the YouTube video of that, I mean, it's sad. His nose is inward, and he's begging the judge to basically just for one more shot. So it's good. Sounds good that you've talked to him. I don't know how much do you keep in touch with him, but how much do you keep in touch with him, and what's he up to now?
Brad, over the years, I've tried to. I mean, when I was in California, those were some of the darkest times that I've ever gone through. You thought they were dark when I was on the show, but afterwards it got really bad, and he was always there for me. I mean, he's talked me off the ledge a million times, and I just tried and be there for him, but it's very hard. He changes his number quite often, and we won't speak for a while. But when I finally saw him this past a few weekends ago when he was doing a comedy club out in Long Island, I think he was with Governors, or Governors, yeah. Man, it was just like I gave him a hug, and it was just so emotional. Like, dude, you got to get on stage, man. Let me get out of here. So do your thing first, and then I'll talk to you. It was just to see him again, and he put up something on Twitter that was really nice, a picture of us on there, because he knows how much I care about him, and he knows how we've both been through the mill. So
yeah, you guys.
It was very emotional.
Well, and I wanted to go back to the days on the show. It seemed like you two were. You didn't know, I guess, at the point. I guess he didn't really reveal that he was doing all of his heroin, I guess, until 06, and maybe it just kind of started back up then. But boy, he was having some rough times. Quick,
Artie and I have had and this goes to be the same with a lot of people. I mean, even if like my friend pointed out, if you Google Artie and Howard, it'll be like one day Artie loves Howard, the next day Artie's saying Howard's the biggest piece of ass, going. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, which is why I'm not cursing.
Yeah, curse away, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so like Artie goes from and that's how it was with me. I mean, Artie will be like, I love John. John's great. And then the next day, John's an idiot, and he just goes back and forth. And, quite frankly, I'm just over it. I don't even, as soon as he got on the Cumia show, I knew he was going to corrupt Anthony, because I was on Anthony's show so many times and we had such a blast. And, the producers and everyone told me how well we were together, and Anthony knew how well we were. But as soon as Artie gets there, it just becomes the Trash John hour. And that seems to be all they do now. So I don't really talk to Artie. I wish him well. I don't know how much longer he's got on this planet, but I don't hate the guy. I just I don't talk to him now, and he's a troubled guy. He's got a drug problem. I mean, I do his podcast and do Anthony's show, and Artie's nose is bleeding from snorting heroin. So I mean, the guy is on a death wish. So you got to feel bad for him that that he hates his life that much that he's got to do drugs and I don't know, literally try and kill himself. That's what he's doing, and he's doing it in front of people's so people can sit and watch him. I won't watch Anthony's show because I don't want to watch Artie die, and that's just what it is Artie. He's talking in the nasally and his big nose from all the heroin that he's snorting. It's just, I mean, the guy's trying to kill himself. I mean, and it's sad that he doesn't have some good friends out there to just intervene. But I guess he just doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, what an uplifting way to end the show here today.
I'm sorry.
No.
Look, I'll say Artie's one of the funniest guys I've ever met, and Artie and I had some great times together, and we had some great times on the air. And, he became my best friend on the show, and he was the one who I confided in before anybody that I was leaving the Stern Show to go to the Tonight Show. And just to give you I'll give you a funny story. Artie knew that I was leaving the Stern Show in March, and I had come up with this bet with Artie that he couldn't hit a fastball thrown by a female softball pitcher. So that was going to happen in Vegas in April. And now, you know, Artie knew I'd be out of there in March, and we had $1,000 bet. So while we were talking about the bet on the air, Artie starts going, John, put the 1,000 on the table. Put it on Howard's desk now. Put it on his desk now. And I'm like, why? And Howard's like, why, Artie? If John loses, he'll pay you in Vegas. And Artie's like, no, just tell him to put it on the desk now, because Artie knew I wasn't going to be there with him in Vegas.
I'll have to go back and listen to that. I also,
yeah, it's so funny. And I knew why Artie was doing it, but Howard had no clue. And it's hysterical. But that's the kind of thing, like, Artie and I really had so much fun on the air. But I'll tell you this, if any fan wants to watch literally my favorite hour on the Stern Show, and that involves Artie, it's me and Artie, and it's after we got back from, I think, Columbus, Ohio, doing stand-up. And I go over, the first half hour is me going over what Artie ordered at the Steak and Shake drive-thru. It was literally like freaking half the menu. And I goof on Artie for a while, but then I talk about how I drank orange juice and there were maggots in it. and I start like going to throw up and making those noises that you do before you drop. Artie then immediately thinks I'm trying to get a lawsuit against Tropicana, and he starts goofing on me. And it literally, after the hour, Scott DePace, the director, pulled me aside after I got out of the studio and went, John, that is in my top 10 of funniest hours ever on the Stern Show. So if you want to Google it, just Google Stuttering John Artie, orange juice and maggots. And I'm telling you, if you YouTube it is the funniest hour that you'll hear. I'm telling you.
I can do Artie what he was doing. He goes, that Continental Airlines. It was funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Artie Lange, you toured with him. I don't know if you talked to him a lot. I know a lot of fans. It's really weird. I actually just talked to Stuttering John, and then friends of mine are like, oh, because I don't listen to Howard as much as I used to. I felt like the day Artie left, it was like, oh man, that's kind of the end of the show to me, and I haven't listened. But with Stuttering John, it really felt like an end of an era, because then they bring in Richard and Sal, and it was just different. But a lot of my friends were like, oh, no, you got to go back and listen. And I used to love Artie too. But how are you talking to Artie at all, and how's he doing? Obviously,
I see him once in a while. You know, he's doing a podcast now, and it's really funny. He's doing good. I see him out in the clubs in New York City. You know, he's hanging in there.
You guys
yeah, so, you know, he's still around. He's kicking.
Any good road stories from those days when you guys toured? Because, you know, you guys got to, well, I know he played Carnegie Hall, and you start finding these big areas, these big stages, these big rooms. You're not playing the Funny Bone anymore. Now you're playing, 3,000 seat. Do you have any fun? I just remember, Artie talking about having a sandwich thrown at him, or any fun memories that you have of those tours and those times?
Oh yeah, I mean, those tours were amazing. I remember, it's funny because it just happened at the Funny Bone in St. Louis. So Artie was playing there before he got really big and started playing theaters, right? So Artie's doing 7 shows over the weekend. They're all selling out. So Artie's up on stage doing a show at the Funny Bone in St. Louis, and the waitress comes up to the table and she has 10 shots of Jägermeister on a tray. And Artie just stops at 7. He goes, okay. He goes, which one's mine? She goes, they all are. And he goes, what do you mean they all are? She goes, someone bought them for you. And Artie goes, I can't do all 10 of these shots. And the whole crowd just starts booing him and starts to chant for him to do it. So he drinks all 10 down, one at a time, 10 in a row, right down, and then he finishes the set somehow. Now, I'm there 2 weeks later, and I'm drawing a lot of the Stern crowd, too, and they send 10 shots up to the stage. I go, what is this? This is for you. I go, I don't drink when I'm on stage. They go, no, Artie, and they're like, Artie was here 2 weeks ago. We did all 10 shots. Come on, man. They started chanting. And I just said, hey, look, I'm telling you right now, I'm not Artie Lange. I go, I'll do 1 shot and that's it. I'll drink afterwards. I don't drink during my show. And they were booing and stuff. I go, I don't give a shit. I was giving the crowd the finger. I go, you can boo me all you want. I'll do 1 of these and that's it. I'm not doing 10. So I wound up just doing the 1. But I had to shut that down. And then I told the waitress, I go, look, if that happens again, just put iced tea or something, fake, make that it's not a real shot, and I'll just do all 10 so I don't have to deal with that abuse.
Those are my people, Jim.